Hello, everyone. Welcome to Walk Down Memory Lane. This is our birthday celebration video series where we have David Miller as our esteemed moderator and host, interview people special and dear to LifeQuest. And today, Lindy, we have some very special guests. Who do we have today?
We do. We have some incredible leaders of the organization. We have former and present board chairs. So Elaine Scott served as our board chair from 2014 to 2015. Elaine, thank you for joining us today. And then right after Elaine, we had Fred Ursery, and he served from 2016 to 2017. Fred, thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
And then we have our current board chair, Eve Yancey. She filled in due to some health issues for Bob Cave. And so she kind of took over in the middle of the year in 2019, and she is leading us today. So thank you, Eve, for coming. And we just appreciate y'all being here and just helping us to get glimpses of the behind the scenes of LifeQuest. So thank y'all.
Okay, David, take it away. This is a wonderful way for us to celebrate 40 years.
All right. Thank you very much. And I want to add my greeting to three of you who have served LifeQuest in a unique way by being the chair of the board. And I do want to find out ahead of time whether you have a life other than being part of LifeQuest. So I'm going to ask that each of you tell a little bit about your background, maybe if you're retired, perhaps what you did before retirement or what you're involved in now. So, well, let me see. I'm going to look and Elaine, let's start with you.
Okay. I always say I'm a recovering English teacher.
Yeah.
My kids say you never recover, but taught school in Springdale and Fayetteville to put my husband through law school, best investment I ever made. And then I later, when he was recalled into the Army, got a master's degree when I went back to live with my parents at Ole Miss with our year-old child. And after that, we came back to Little Rock. I taught freshman English at UALR for 18 years. And those people are now middle-aged. It's very strange how that happens.
How does that happen?
I don't know. But then in 19, appointed me to the State Board of Education to serve 3 years of an unexpired term and said he would reappoint me for the full term, which was 9 years. And I said to him, my gosh, that's like getting married again. And he said, well, you handled that. So I did that for many years and was involved with lots of national organizations. And it was really a wonderful thing to get up every morning and think, well, today I could do something good for school kids in Arkansas. It was very rewarding. And since then, let's see, when was that over? About 20 years ago. I continued to do some education things, but then pretty much retired now. But I'll correct your grammar if you're not careful.
All right. I am forewarned. Meanwhile, yes. I want to ask Fred, how about a little bit of your background? Or as much as you care to share with us. How's that?
All right. I was born and raised in Pine Bluff, and then I went to college and law school, and then I served 2 years in the Army. And starting in 1969, I was practiced law with the firm of Friday, Eldridge and Clark, and practiced with them for my whole career. And I kind of gradually retired, but I permanently retired about 3 years ago.
All right. Okay, thank you for that. And we have now the present chair of LifeQuest. Eve, tell us a little bit about your life story.
Well, this isn't going to be very scintillating, but I'm from El Dorado. I come from a family of attorneys. My great-grandfather was an attorney. My grandfather was an attorney. My father was an attorney. My husband is an attorney. My son is an attorney. And I went to law school, decided not to actually practice, but spent most of my early career, with the Historic Preservation Program, doing their compliance, working on their compliance issues with environmental standards and tax credits for rehabilitating historic buildings. Did that for several years and then decided I had this son who was 3 years old, and I decided to devote my life to being what I said I would never be, a mother and a housewife. Although I have probably been president of most of the nonprofit organizations in Arkansas. So I kept myself very busy with volunteer work. When I was, took a bit of a hiatus when Ann Lee, one of the former directors of LifeQuest and a friend of mine, called and said, would you consider being on the board? And I thought, well, I love LifeQuest. It serves a great purpose, and that's something that I am willing to give my time to. And then the next thing I knew, I was chairman of the board.
I want to add.
Okay.
I want to add one thing at this point, David. Eve's father was Dennis Shackelford, and he was one of the most highly regarded lawyers in Arkansas. So I want to get that.
All right.
Thank you, Fred.
I'm glad you added that. And I'm getting the impression that the only way one could become chair of the board of LifeQuest is to have had a legal background. Now, disabuse me of that if necessary. I'm looking, what are the traits that make for a successful chair of the board? Anybody?
Endurance, persistence. No, I think that anybody who has done LifeQuest courses and enjoyed them, and I confess, I'm a learning junkie. As long as I'm learning something, I'm having fun, is the thing that is most important for a board chair, because the whole purpose of LifeQuest is those courses. And it's great to be able to have some say in how that works.
Well,
Anyone else? Yes.
I will say that I started with LifeQuest about 10 years ago when Dick Williams first got me involved as a speaker on that group of lawyers that he has. And I had not been a member of LifeQuest very long when my good friend Annette Conway, who I think was on the board nominating committee, came and said, we want you to be on the board. And I said, well, Annette, I've just started attending LifeQuest, and I really don't know very much about it. And as y'all know, Annette, how she does, she goes, oh, Fred, you'll be wonderful. And so I've since used that technique in recruiting other board members. You know, don't take a no for an answer.
Well, and Fred, I think you hit on something very important, and Wayne, you too. One of the defining factors and unique factors with LifeQuest is we have a very working board. So the chairman is not there to do everything. And my approach has been, because we have such capable, incredible board members, is that you delegate. You send tasks to the people that you know can get it done. And these board members always come through. So as chairman, you're in a leadership position, but you don't hesitate to delegate and ask for help and assistance.
What are some of the tasks that you recall handing off to board members in order to manage? In other words, if I didn't know anything about the board, I would wonder, well, let's see, this is an education group, people who are, let us say, well along on life's journey. What are the things that a board would have to get concerned about?
Well, we have standing committees, and the chair of the board is instrumental in appointing the people to those committees, like resource and development. They are responsible for fundraising and special events and that sort of thing. The curriculum committee that pretty much Leah is in charge of, but they're the ones who put together our curriculum. This year, for the first time, I've appointed a future planning committee because of and I'll get into this later when you ask the question, David, but we had a very unusual 2020, but it did give us some opportunities. So I have appointed a future planning committee to develop a strategy of how we take advantage of the new opportunities that a monumental catastrophe caused. And, you know, everyone has been willing to serve. You call someone, say, will you be in charge of this committee? Yes, absolutely. Board members want to be involved, and they're invaluable.
Well, that certainly was a unique situation in 2020, which extends into the current year. Thinking back, were there other situations that really tested the board to find out whether things could be moved ahead? Or, in other words, challenges. Can you think of any challenges preceding the pandemic which required special attention from the board members? Anybody?
Well, when I was chair, there was a changeover of staff people, and that wasn't always easy. The people who had been on the staff went on to other things, and we got some younger people, newer people, some of whom are still here, and they did a wonderful job of the transition, and I'm grateful to all of them for that.
Well, Elaine, in keeping with that, immediately prior to the pandemic, our executive director resigned. So I appointed a search committee, and then the pandemic hit. It was really hard to search when you can't meet with people in person.
Oh, yeah.
So we had that challenge, but fortunately, according to our bylaws, it was Lindy in her position stepped up to the interim director position and just performed beautifully. So when it came time that we could actually do a little bit of actual interviewing and that sort of thing, Lindy was far above any other applicant. So, but that was just another part of the pot that we were dealing with then.
Yeah. Well, the whole pandemic thing has been such a challenge, and it has been met just wonderfully well. And I think those of us who love the classes have been able to continue, at least virtually, and that's been great.
David, may I address that for a moment?
Sure.
Well, you were talking about challenges, and I think that the pandemic was probably unprecedented and probably one of the greatest challenges Riverfest, what LifeQuest. I was chairman of Riverfest. LifeQuest has faced. But what happened is we turned this huge challenge into an opportunity because of the resourcefulness and the ingenuity and the determination and the dedication of the staff. They were able to transform LifeQuest from an in-class setting to virtual classes. And I think I've got the numbers here somewhere. Let me see.
I will add, while she's looking for those numbers, that we've been very fortunate that the 2 times that we've had a vacancy during the time I was going to LifeQuest, we had a person who was familiar with LifeQuest and had worked here previously that could step in and take over, and they were familiar with the organization. So we've certainly been fortunate in that regard.
Yeah.
Okay, just number wise on our registration, we had in 2020 for fall, before the pandemic hit, we had 867 participants.
Wow.
In 2021, with the pandemic and having just started charging for classes again, we had 350 participants. And the thing that the virtual classes have allowed us to do is we are reaching people internationally and nationwide. So we basically have created a new role model. Even when we go back to in-class sessions, we have a whole new market out there that we can continue to offer.
That's great.
Virtual classes. And I think that gives LifeQuest the opportunity to expand tremendously. We're already partnering with some national organizations. And I think, there's a silver lining to this.
Is that part
what the
of
future planning committee will do, is look at what our strategy is to move forward with this new business model.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned a future committee. Is that one of the areas that you're exploring in terms of looking toward the future of LifeQuest?
Yes, the future planning committee will address what our goals, what our strategies are, and how we incorporate what we've learned during the pandemic by offering courses online. One of the advantages is that people can take advantage of the classes whenever they want to. They don't have to just go Wednesdays and Thursdays. They don't have to select one class over another class because the times conflict. That they can do it on their time, and they don't mind paying the $65 for that because everything's available to them 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. So it's a real opportunity for LifeQuest to expand.
Right. Now, I gather that all of you have been involved in other boards for other kinds of organizations, perhaps nonprofit organizations or maybe for profit. How would you compare the board for LifeQuest with other opportunities that you've been involved in personally? Anybody?
Well, I would say that we're very fortunate on our board. We have a lot of people who have had previous careers, most of them, and they're all very talented and from different walks of life. We have lawyers, ministers, rabbis, retired professors. So I think it's a very highly qualified board in my experience.
Yeah.
Does that sum it up for you, Elaine or Eve?
Well, yeah. I think another thing is that it's a large board, and that gives a lot of different talents to the discussions that it has about various things, and a lot of different ways to connect with the community. As Eve was saying, you know, active in other things in the community so that LifeQuest makes those connections for people.
All right, as we look toward the future, and Eve has already made a reference to that. Well, there's one thing that occurs to me when we talk about the numbers of participants. The board may have to make decisions about where the classes will be held. Was that at all a factor when each of you was chair of the board, concerned about whether you're going to run out of facilities, physical facilities to do the job?
Well, that was a serious concern of our board prior to COVID. And I think, like I said, the silver lining of COVID is we have found a way to expand without having to physically expand, how to offer our courses in a different format. Because we were running out of space.
Yeah. Well, but the church has been so hospitable and made it so easy for LifeQuest to do what it does. And I'm very grateful for that. And I realize that at a certain point, we're going to outgrow it. But as Eve was saying, virtual helps with that. So, and I think there are people who, for one reason or another, have trouble getting here, or their health is not wonderful, who will continue to enjoy the virtual aspect. So in a way, we've got the best of both worlds.
Absolutely. And I think the staff has done a tremendous job of educating our participants and our instructors on how to do the virtual classes. And I think the more that people participate that way, the more comfortable they become, and word gets out. You know, I can't tell you how many people I've talked to that said, no, you can get, and I've said, you know, you can get online, get the courses and do it anytime you want to. And they think that's tremendous. So maybe our space issue is not quite as insurmountable as we thought it might be.
But I do thank you, Elaine, for mentioning the partnership, so to speak, between Second Presbyterian Church and LifeQuest. I guess that goes back, well, it predates Elaine when you came in as chair. I know that at least for 20 years, and maybe longer than that, maybe much longer than that, there was an association between the church as providing facilities to LifeQuest. So that's an important factor that I think is worthy of emphasizing as we talk about it.
Yeah.
Yes,
Well,
I would like to add, David, also that without Second Pres, we would be in a real bind, and they have been a great partner. And also, I want to put in a plug for our staff, because I think our staff, there's been very little turnover in recent years. And when I first came on the board, there was some turnover, but now we're fortunate to have a very qualified staff, and there's been very little turnover, and we're very lucky in that regard.
And they are a real team.
Great.
They all work so well together, and they each have their own talents, and they complement one another. And I can't imagine a better staffing situation.
Well,
I
on
agree
that,
wholeheartedly.
on that high note, I'd like to wrap up this discussion and thank the three of you for agreeing to talk with us. And I'll turn it back now to whoever is going to pick it up from here. Leah?
Hang on. Leah's muted. There you go.
No.
Sorry. We're blushing with all the compliments, but you know, it has been a roller coaster. It's been a real ride, and I can just speak for myself. Having the board's support through this, and really being reasonable with expectations, but also so supportive, has been really made it all the difference. It's been the best organization I've ever worked for, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I want to add another point. The members of LifeQuest themselves have been great, and they're all very generous. We have a lot of them that make substantial donations to LifeQuest every year, and so we need to recognize our members. They're very high quality and generous also.
Fred, I'm glad you mentioned that. One of the things I wanted to point out is when we had to cancel last spring's term, a lot of people had already registered, and we offered refunds because we had to cancel the term. I can't tell you how many people said just keep it and consider it a donation. And then
Most.
we had two fundraisers that raised an incredible amount of money. And if it weren't for our membership, we might not be here. They have been totally dedicated and supportive and generous.
I wanted to add one other thing when I was looking over my notes about what we'd done. I think the event we had at the Clinton Center honoring John Brummett was a great event because not only did we want to honor John, but we had a great turnout of our members, and it was a high-profile event. So I wanted to recognize that.
Let's do it again. I'm going to be ready to see everybody. Let's have a reason to get dressed up and do something fun again. Wouldn't that be great? I hope we get to do that in the near future.
And hopefully at the end of the year, we will get to do something like that to honor all of you guys, all of our members, all of our instructors, all of our sponsors for just the incredible 40 years that we have had. And hopefully things are looking good. We're hopeful that we might be able to do something like that at the end of the year.
Well, and swinging down the lane with David was a pretty good.
It sure was. Yes. Getting to celebrate and honor
I had
you
fun,
and your
I
service.
can tell you that.
Yeah, fun class, fun event. Well, I've worked with some other nonprofits too, Eve, and I have never worked with a board that I knew everybody's name and they knew mine. So it is a nice to work for a small organization, but it's nice to work with an organization where the board members are so involved in the mission and the day-to-day activities of our nonprofit. So, and again, you've mentioned instructors, but I always have to put my little plug in. If we didn't have instructors teaching and being brave enough to teach online, which is a new thing and not easy and new, Zoom has been new for most of us, we just wouldn't have an organization. So I just really thank our instructors, and many of them, like David, who has also been on the board and on the curriculum committee, serve in volunteer ways other than instructing. So we're very fortunate.
Let me add one more thing before we close. I think we need to recognize the late David Dyer, who was a stalwart instructor, and he also served on the board and was a very faithful attendee at our board meetings.
One of the best.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, happy birthday to LifeQuest this year. Thank each of you for coming. And David is our esteemed moderator and host. We depend on you to help lead us forward. So thank you very much, everyone, for
My
coming
pleasure.
today.
Thank you, guys. We appreciate y'all.
Thanks.